The rain came down hard that morning, cold, relentless. Captain Marcus Shaw stood at his post outside the palace gates, his red uniform soaked through. He had been a royal guard for 12 years. He had seen protests, threats, even attempted breaches, but nothing prepared him for what was about to arrive. It was 6:47 a.m. when the unmarked van pulled up to the outer checkpoint. No logo, no plates, just a plain white vehicle with tinted windows. Marcus's hand moved instinctively to his radio. His partner, Officer Lin, noticed it too. They exchanged a glance. Something felt wrong. The van idled for a moment. Then the driver's door opened. A young woman stepped out. She wore a gray hoodie, jeans, and old sneakers. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled as she reached into the back of the van and pulled out a small wooden box. It was about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in brown paper and tied with white string. "I need to deliver this," she said quietly. Her voice shook. "It's for the palace." Marcus stepped forward. His eyes scanned her, the box, the van. Protocol was clear. No unscheduled deliveries. No unknown packages. Especially not like this. "Who sent it?" Marcus asked, his tone firm but not unkind. The woman hesitated. Her eyes filled with tears. "I can't say. But it's important, please. It has to get inside." Marcus didn't move. "We can't accept anything without proper identification and clearance. You know that—" Ash! The woman's lips quivered. She looked down at the box in her hands. "If I don't deliver this, someone will die." The words hung in the air like a blade. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Officer Lin stepped closer, her hand near her weapon. The rain drummed louder on the pavement. "Ma'am," Marcus said slowly, "I need you to put the box down and step back." But the woman didn't move. Instead, she began to cry. Soft, desperate sobs. "You don't understand. This isn't a threat. This is a plea. Someone inside the palace needs to see this. Before it's too late." Marcus's mind raced. Bomb? Blackmail? A prank? None of it made sense. He activated his earpiece. "Control. This is Gate 1. We have an unknown delivery attempt. Female, mid-20s, distressed, requesting backup and bomb detection." The woman shook her head. "No, please. I don't have much time. Just ... Just take it to someone who can help. Please." Before Marcus could respond, she set the box down gently on the wet ground. Then she turned and climbed back into the van. The engine roared to life. Marcus shouted, "Wait." But the van sped off, tires screeching against the slick road. Officer Lin rushed forward and knelt beside the box. Marcus crouched next to her. They stared at it. The brown paper was already soaking through. The white string looked old, frayed. "Should we open it?" Lin whispered. Marcus shook his head. "Not until the team gets here." But as they waited, Marcus noticed something. Written in small, shaky handwriting on the side of the box were 5 words from the one you forgot. A chill ran down his spine. Not from the rain. From something deeper? Something that felt like a warning. If you're hooked already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. This story is just getting started. Within minutes, the bomb squad arrived. The palace was put on alert. The box was carefully scanned. No explosives. No chemicals. No wires, just ... Something inside. Something small. Something that rattled softly when they moved it, and when the squad leader finally cut the string and peeled back the paper. What they found inside made everyone in that room go silent. It was a single photograph. Faded, old, creased at the edges. And in that photograph was a face no one had seen in over 20 years. The photograph was handed to Marcus. He held it carefully, studying the image. A young woman stared back at him from the picture. She had dark hair, soft eyes, and a gentle smile. She wore a simple dress. Nothing fancy. Nothing royal. Behind her was a garden. Flowers in bloom. a wooden bench. It looked like spring, but it was the date scribbled on the back that made Marcus's breath. Catch. April 14th, 2003, 20-2 years ago. Who is she? Officer Lin asked, peering over his shoulder. Marcus didn't know, but someone inside the palace would. He tucked the photograph into an evidence bag and made his way through the security corridors. His boots echoed on the marble floors. Guards saluted as he passed. He barely noticed. He reached the office of Lady Catherine Aldridge, the palace's head of communications and one of the longest-serving members of the royal household. She was in her 60s now, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. She had seen everything. If anyone could identify the woman in the photograph, it was her. Marcus knocked. Lady Aldridge. Come in, came the calm, measured voice. He stepped inside. The office smelled of lavender and old books. Catherine sat behind her desk, reading a file. She looked up, and when she saw Marcus's face, her expression shifted. What's wrong? She asked. Marcus placed the evidence bag on her desk. A package was delivered this morning. Unscheduled, unknown sender. Inside was this. Catherine picked up the bag. She looked at the photograph. For a moment, her face remained neutral. Then, slowly, the color drained from her cheeks. Her hands began to shake. Double quotes. Where did you get this? She whispered. A woman dropped it off. She wouldn't give her name. She said someone inside the palace needed to see it. Then she left. Catherine's eyes never left the photograph. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Finally, she set the bag down and looked at Marcus. Captain Shaw, she said quietly, I need you to bring this to the Queen immediately. Ah! Marcus blinked. The Queen? Why? Catherine's voice was barely audible. Because the woman in this photograph is her daughter. The words hit Marcus like a punch. He stared at Catherine, then at the photograph. But the Queen only has 2 children, Prince Andrew and Princess Charlotte, both alive, both accounted for. Catherine shook her head slowly. Not accounted for. Not anymore. She stood and walked to the window. Rain streaked down the glass. She spoke without turning around. 22 years ago, the Queen had another child. A daughter. Her name was Eliza. She was born in secret. The circumstances were ... complicated. The Queen was young, unmarried. It was before she ascended to the throne. The family decided it was best to give the child up. For her safety. For the Queen's future, Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. Adopted? Yes. To a family outside the country? The records were sealed. The Queen was told it was the only way. She never spoke of it again, but she never forgot. Catherine turned to face him. Her eyes were wet. And now, after all these years, someone has sent this photograph. Someone who knows. Marcus looked down at the image again. The young woman's face. The soft smile. The garden behind her? It looked peaceful, innocent. But the weight of what it represented was crushing. Who would send this? Marcus asked. And why now? Catherine didn't answer. She picked up her phone and dialed a private number. After a moment, she spoke. Your Majesty, it's Catherine. I need to see you immediately. It's urgent. There was a pause. Then Catherine's face tightened. It's about Eliza. Another pause. Longer this time? Yes, ma'am. I understand. She hung up and turned to Marcus. The Queen will see us in her private chamber. Now. They walked in silence through the palace's inner halls. Marcus had been inside these walls for over a decade, but he had never been summoned to the Queen's private quarters. Not like this. Not with news like this. When they arrived, the door was already open. Inside, the Queen sat in a high-backed chair near the fireplace. She wore a simple blue dress. No crown, no jewelry. She looked smaller than Marcus had ever seen her. More human, Catherine approached and bowed. Marcus did the same. The Queen gestured for them to sit, but neither did. Show me, the Queen said softly. Catherine handed her the evidence bag. The Queen's hands moved slowly as she took out the photograph. She stared at it for a long time. Her lips pressed together. Her eyes glistened. "Lisa," she whispered. "My Eliza." Then she turned the photograph over and saw the date. Her hand went to her mouth. A small, broken sound escaped her lips. "Where did this come from?" she asked, her voice cracking. Marcus stepped forward. "A woman delivered it this morning, Your Majesty. She said someone inside the palace needed to see it. She wouldn't identify herself. She left before we could question her." The Queen looked up at him. "Did she say anything else?" Marcus hesitated. Then he nodded. "She said if she didn't deliver it, someone would die." The room went cold. The Queen's face hardened. She set the photograph down and stood. "Find her," she said. "Find that woman. And find out who sent this." Marcus saluted. "Yes, ma'am." But as he turned to leave, the Queen spoke again. Her voice was quiet, fragile. "Captain Shaw, do you believe Eliza is still alive?" Marcus stopped. He looked back at the Queen, at the pain in her eyes, the hope, the fear. "I don't know, Your Majesty," he said honestly, "but I will find out." Marcus returned to the security office with a single mission: find the woman. Find answers. He pulled the surveillance footage from the outer gate cameras and watched the scene unfold again. The unmarked van, the trembling woman in the gray hoodie, the box, her words. Her tears, he froze the frame when her face was clearest. Young, maybe dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted, terrified. He sent the image to the palace's intelligence team with a priority flag. Within an hour, her name was Sophie Grant, 26 years old. No criminal record. She worked as a hospice nurse in a small town 2 hours north of the capital. She lived alone. No husband. No children. But there was one detail that made Marcus's stomach tighten. Her mother's name was Eliza Grant, the same name as the Queen's lost daughter. Marcus didn't waste time. He grabbed Officer Lin and a small security detail. They drove north through the rain, following the address on file. The roads were empty. The sky was gray. The world felt heavy. They arrived at a small cottage on the edge of town. It was old, paint peeling, garden overgrown. A single light glowed in the front window. Marcus approached the door and knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Harder this time. "Sophie Grant. This is Captain Shaw from the Royal Guard. We need to speak with you." Still nothing. Marcus exchanged a glance with Lynn. She nodded. He tried the door. It was unlocked. He pushed it open slowly. "Hello, Miss Grant?" The smell hit him first. Antiseptic. Medicine. Sickness. He stepped inside. The living room was cluttered, but clean. A sofa. A small table. Photographs on the walls. Marcus moved carefully through the house, his senses on high alert. Then he heard it. A soft beeping sound. Rhythmic. Steady. Coming from a back room, he walked down the narrow hallway and stopped at an open door. Inside was a hospital bed. Medical equipment lined the walls. For drips, monitors, oxygen tanks, and in the bed, frail and pale, was a woman. She looked to be in her 40s, but illness had aged her. Her dark hair was streaked with gray. Her face was thin. But her eyes. Marcus recognized those eyes. He had seen them before in the photograph. "Liza," he whispered. The woman's eyes flickered open. She looked at him. Confusion, fear, then recognition. Not of him, but of the uniform. "You came," she said weakly. Her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus stepped closer. "Are you Eliza Grant?" She nodded slowly. "I was. Eliza Hale. A long time ago." Hale, the Queen's maiden name. Marcus felt his chest tighten. "You're the Queen's daughter." Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. Why didn't you come forward?" "Why now?" Eliza coughed. It was a deep, painful sound. She struggled to breathe. When she finally spoke, her words came in fragments. "I didn't know. For most of my life, my adoptive parents, They told me when I was 18. Gave me a letter. From my mother. She said she had to let me go. To protect me. To give me a normal life. She paused, gasping for air. Marcus wanted to tell her to rest, but he needed to hear this. I wanted to meet her, Eliza continued. But I was ... scared. What if she didn't want me? What if I ruined her life? So I stayed away. I built my own life. I had Sophie, my beautiful daughter. Her hand trembled as she reached for a glass of water. Marcus helped her drink. But then I got sick. Stage 4 cancer, the doctor said. 6 months, maybe less. And I realized ... I was running out of time. I needed Sophie to know. To know where she came from. To know she has family. Marcus knelt beside the bed. Why didn't you come yourself? Why send Sophie? Eliza smiled weakly. I'm too weak. Can't leave the bed. And I was ... afraid. Afraid she wouldn't believe me. Afraid the palace would turn me away. So I sent the photograph. The one my mother gave me. Proof. Hope. Marcus looked at the monitors. The numbers were low. Oxygen levels dropping. Heart rate irregular. Eliza didn't have long. She wants to see you, Marcus said gently. The Queen, she's been looking for you. She never forgot. Eliza's eyes widened. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She remembers me? She never stopped thinking about you. Eliza closed her eyes. A sob escaped her lips. I thought she moved on. That I was just a mistake. You were never a mistake, Marcus said. She loved you. She still does. The door opened behind him. Marcus turned. Sophie stood in the doorway. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She looked at Marcus, then at her mother. They found us, she whispered. Eliza reached out a weak hand. Sophie rushed to her side. It's okay, Eliza said softly. He's here to help. Marcus stood. Miss Grant, I need to take you and your mother to the palace. The Queen wants to see her. To see both of you. Sophie shook her head. She can't travel. She's too weak. Moving her could kill her. Marcus looked at the monitors again. She was right. Eliza was dying. Time was running out. Then we bring the Queen here, Marcus said. Sophie stared at him. You can do that? Marcus pulled out his radio. I can try. He stepped outside and contacted the palace. He explained the situation. The woman. The illness. The urgency. There was silence on the other end. Then Lady Catherine's voice came through. Stand by, Captain. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Marcus paced in the rain. Finally, the radio crackled. Captain Shaw, the Queen is on her way. ETA 30 minutes. Prepare the location. Marcus felt a wave of relief. He walked back inside. She's coming, Sophie gasped. Elisa's eyes opened wide. She's coming here. Marcus nodded. She wants to see you. Elisa began to cry. Deep, shaking sobs. Sophie held her mother's hand. Marcus stepped back, giving them space. He had done his job. Now he had to wait. The next 30 minutes felt like hours. The rain continued. The cottage was silent except for the beeping of the monitors. Marcus stood by the window, watching the road. Then he saw them. A convoy of black vehicles. No sirens, no lights. Just quiet, purposeful movement. The car stopped in front of the cottage. Doors opened and the Queen stepped out. The Queen wore a dark coat. Her hair was covered by a simple scarf. No crown, no guards flanking her. Just Lady Catherine at her side. She looked like any other mother. Tired, anxious, desperate. Marcus opened the door. Your Majesty. She nodded but didn't speak. Her eyes scanned the small cottage. The peeling wallpaper. The worn furniture. The life her daughter had lived without her. Her face remained composed, but Marcus could see the pain in her eyes. She's in the back room, Marcus said quietly. She's very weak. The Queen took a deep breath and walked forward. Lady Catherine followed. Marcus stayed near the entrance, giving them privacy. He watched as the Queen reached the doorway and stopped. Inside, Eliza lay in the hospital bed. Sophie stood beside her, holding her mother's hand. When Eliza saw the Queen, her breath hitched. Her lips trembled. She tried to sit up, but Sophie gently pressed her back down. "Stay still, Mum," Sophie whispered. The Queen stepped inside slowly. She moved like she was afraid the moment would shatter. When she reached the bedside, she stopped. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. They just looked at each other. Mother and daughter, separated by time, reunited by fate, Eliza the Queen finally said. Her voice broke on the name. "Your Majesty?" Eliza whispered. Tears streamed down her face. The Queen shook her head. "No, not Your Majesty. Not here. Not now." She reached out a trembling hand and touched Eliza's cheek. "Just ... Mum." Eliza's face crumpled. A sob tore from her throat. The Queen leaned down and wrapped her arms around her daughter. Carefully, gently, as if she might break. And Eliza clung to her. Years of pain. Years of longing. Released in that single embrace. "I'm so sorry," the Queen whispered. "I'm so sorry." "No," Eliza said through her tears. "You saved me. You gave me a life. A good life. I had parents who loved me. I had Sophie. I had everything." The Queen pulled back just enough to look at her. "But you didn't have me." Eliza smiled weakly. "I always had you." In here she placed a hand over her heart. "I carried you with me every day." The Queen pressed her forehead to Eliza's. They stayed like that for a long time, just breathing, just being together. Sophie watched from the corner, tears streaming down her face. Lady Catherine stood in the doorway, a handkerchief pressed to her lips. Finally, the Queen pulled back. She looked at Sophie. "And you must be my granddaughter." Sophie nodded, unable to speak. The Queen smiled. A real smile. Warm, genuine. You look just like her. Just like Eliza did when she was young. Sophie stepped forward. The Queen opened her arms, and Sophie fell into them. The Queen held her tightly. "You're family," she whispered. "You've always been family." They stayed like that for a while. Then the Queen sat down in the chair beside the bed. She took Eliza's hand in hers and held it gently. "Tell me everything," the Queen said softly. "Tell me about your life." And Eliza did. She spoke slowly, her voice weak but steady. She told her about her adoptive parents. Kind people. A teacher and a nurse. They raised her in a quiet town by the sea. She told her about school, friends, first loves, heartbreaks. She told her about meeting Sophie's father, a good man who died too young. She told her about raising Sophie alone. Working long hours, struggling, but never giving up. She told her about the diagnosis, the treatments, the hope that faded with each doctor's visit, and she told her about the letter. The one the Queen had written 22 years ago. The one she read every night before bed. "You said in the letter," Eliza whispered, "that you would love me forever. That letting me go was the hardest thing you'd ever done. That you hoped I would understand one day." The Queen's grip tightened. "And do you understand?" Eliza nodded. "I do. You were protecting me, giving me a chance. I don't blame you. I never did." The Queen closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I thought about you every day. Every birthday, every Christmas. I wondered if you were happy, if you were safe, if you knew how much I loved you." "I know now," Eliza said, "and that's enough." They sat in silence for a while. The monitors beeped softly. The rain tapped against the window. Outside, Marcus stood guard. Inside, a family was healing, but time was not on their side. Eliza's breathing grew shallower, her skin paler. The Queen noticed. She leaned closer. "Eliza, stay with me." Eliza's eyes fluttered open. "I'm tired, Mom." "I know, sweetheart. I know. Will you stay until the end?" The Queen's voice was firm, strong. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise. Eliza smiled. It was a small, peaceful smile. Good, because I've been waiting my whole life to hear you say that. Her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. The Queen held her hand tighter. Sophie moved to the other side of the bed and took her mother's other hand. They stayed like that, together, as the minutes passed. Then, at 3:42 p.m., the monitor flatlined. Eliza was gone. The Queen didn't move. She kept holding her daughter's hand. Tears fell silently down her face. Sophie sobbed openly. Lady Catherine bowed her head. Marcus stood in the doorway, his heart heavy. After a long time, the Queen leaned down and kissed Eliza's forehead. "Rest now, my darling," she whispered. "You're home." She stood slowly. Her legs shook. Lady Catherine rushed to her side, but the Queen waved her off. She walked over to Sophie and placed both hands on her shoulders. "You will come with me," the Queen said firmly, "to the palace. You are my family. You belong with us now." Sophie looked up at her. "But I don't know how to be royal." The Queen smiled through her tears. "Neither did I. We'll figure it out together." Sophie nodded. She looked back at her mother's still form. "Will she be buried with honor?" The Queen's voice was steady, resolute. "8. She will be buried as a princess, because that's what she was. That's what she always was." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. He turned away, giving them space. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was beginning to clear. A single ray of sunlight broke through the clouds. It felt like a sign, like Eliza was finally at peace. But as Marcus stood there, watching the light spread across the sky, he couldn't shake one question. How had the sender known? How had they known to send the photograph now, at this exact moment, when Eliza had so little time left? Someone had orchestrated this reunion. Someone had known the truth, and Marcus intended to find out who. 3 days later, Eliza's funeral was held in the palace's private chapel. It was a small ceremony, quiet, intimate. Only family and close advisors attended. The Queen sat in the front row, her face composed but her eyes distant. Sophie sat beside her, dressed in black, her hand clasped tightly in her grandmother's. Marcus stood at the back of the chapel. He wore his full-dress uniform. He watched as the priest spoke of love, loss, and redemption. He watched as the Queen placed a single white rose on the casket. He watched as Sophie read a letter her mother had written years ago, a letter filled with hope and gratitude. When it was over, the casket was carried to the royal cemetery. Eliza was laid to rest beside other members of the family. Her name was carved into the stone, Princess Eliza Margaret Howell, beloved daughter and mother. The Queen stood before the grave for a long time, her lips moving in silent prayer. But even in the midst of grief, Marcus's mind was working. The mystery of the photograph still gnawed at him. He had reviewed the footage again and again. The unmarked van. The woman in the hoodie. Sophie's terrified face. She had said she didn't know who gave her the photograph, that it had arrived in the mail with a note that told her to deliver it to the palace, that her mother's life depended on it. Marcus needed to see that note. After the funeral, he approached Sophie in the palace gardens. She sat on a bench beneath a willow tree, staring at the fountain. She looked lost, out of place, like she didn't belong in this world of marble and gold. "Miss Grant," Marcus said gently. She looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen. "You can call me Sophie," he nodded. "Sophie, I need to ask you about the package, the one you delivered." She stiffened. "I already told you everything." "I know. But I need to see the note, the one that came with the photograph." Sophie hesitated. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was worn, creased. She handed it to him. Marcus unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was neat, precise, almost mechanical. It read, "Sophie, your mother is dying. The Queen is her mother. She does not know Eliza is alive. Deliver the photograph to the palace gates. Do it soon. Time is running out. She deserves to say goodbye." They both do. There was no signature. No return address. Marcus flipped the paper over. Nothing. He looked at Sophie. When did you receive this? 5 days ago. It came in a plain envelope. No postmark, just ... Appeared in my mailbox. Did you see anyone near your house? Anything unusual? Sophie shook her head. No, I work long hours at the hospice. I'm barely home. Anyone could have left it. Marcus studied the note again. The wording. The tone. Whoever sent this knew everything. They knew about Eliza, about the Queen, about the illness. They knew time was running out. And they made sure Sophie acted quickly. But why? Why go through all this trouble? Why not contact the palace directly? Why use Sophie as a messenger? Marcus folded the note and put it in his pocket. Thank you. I'll keep investigating. Sophie looked at him. Do you think whoever sent this did it to hurt us or help us? Marcus considered the question. I think they did it to give Eliza what she deserved, a chance to be with her mother, even if only for a few hours. Sophie's eyes filled with tears again. Then I hope you find them, so I can thank them. Marcus nodded and walked away, but as he left the gardens, he couldn't shake the feeling that the sender was closer than anyone realized. That night, Marcus sat in his office, surrounded by files and photographs. He had pulled every piece of information he could find on Eliza's life. Her adoptive parents, her friends, her co-workers, anyone who might have known the truth, but nothing connected. Then he remembered something. Lady Catherine. She had known about Eliza. She had been with the Queen when the decision was made to give the baby up. She had seen the sealed records. She had kept the secret for over 20 years. Could she have sent the photograph? Marcus stood and made his way to her office. It was late. The palace was quiet. Most of the staff had gone home, but a light still glowed beneath Catherine's door. He knocked. Lady Aldridge. Come in, Captain. Marcus entered. Catherine sat at her desk, a glass of wine in her hand. She looked tired, older than she had a few days ago. The weight of secrets had aged her. Working late? Marcus asked. Couldn't sleep, she said. Too much on my mind. Marcus closed the door behind him. I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Catherine looked at him. Go ahead. Did you send the photograph? Catherine didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She simply took a sip of her wine and set the glass down. No, but I know who did. Marcus's pulse quickened. Who? Catherine stood and walked to the window. She looked out at the darkened grounds. Eliza's adoptive mother, Margaret Grant. She passed away 2 years ago. But before she died, she wrote letters. Many letters. To people she trusted. People who could help when the time came. And you received one of these letters? Catherine nodded. Yes, she told me about Eliza's illness. About Sophie. She asked me to watch for signs. To be ready. She said Eliza would never reach out on her own. She was too afraid, too ashamed. So Margaret asked me to make sure the Queen knew, when the time was right. Marcus felt the pieces falling into place. So, you waited? Until Eliza was close to the end? Then you sent the photograph. Catherine turned to face him. No, I didn't send it. I wanted to, but I was afraid. Afraid the Queen would be angry. Afraid it would cause more pain than healing. So I hesitated. Then who sent it? Catherine smiled sadly. Margaret's husband. James Grant. Eliza's adoptive father. He's in a nursing home now. Dementia. Barely remembers his own name. But before he lost himself, he sent the photograph. Just like Margaret had asked him to. He sent it to Sophie. He told her what to do. And then, he forgot. He forgot everything. Marcus sat down. The mystery was solved. Not by conspiracy, not by malice, but by love. By a father who kept a promise to his wife. A promise to reunite a mother and daughter before it was too late. Does the Queen know? Marcus asked. Not yet, Catherine said. But she will. I'll tell her tomorrow. Marcus nodded. He stood and walked to the door. Then he stopped. Lady Aldridge, do you think it was the right thing to send the photograph? Catherine looked at him. Her eyes were clear, certain. Yes, because they got to say goodbye. And that's all anyone can ask for. Marcus left the office and walked through the palace halls. The mystery was over. But the story wasn't. Sophie was still here, still adjusting, still grieving, and the Queen was still learning how to be a grandmother. As Marcus stepped outside into the cool night air, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Eliza was at peace. Somewhere out there, a family had been made whole again. And that, Marcus thought, was worth every moment of the search. 6 months passed. The palace had changed. Not in the grand halls or the gilded rooms, but in the quiet corners where life truly happened. Sophie had moved into one of the guest suites. At first, she resisted. She didn't feel like she belonged, but the Queen insisted, gently, patiently. You are my family, the Queen had said, and family belongs together. So Sophie stayed. She learned how to navigate the palace, how to dress for formal dinners, how to curtsy, how to smile for photographers. But more importantly, she learned about her grandmother, the woman behind the crown. They spent evenings together in the Queen's private sitting room. They talked about Eliza, about her laugh, her stubbornness, her kindness. The Queen showed Sophie old letters, photographs she had kept hidden for decades, a small silver bracelet she had meant to give Eliza on her first birthday. Never threw it away, the Queen said, holding the bracelet up to the light. I kept thinking, maybe one day. Da-da-da-da-da. Sophie took the bracelet. It was delicate, beautiful. She would have loved it. The Queen smiled. Then you should have it. You're her daughter. You carry her with you. Sophie put the bracelet on. It fit perfectly. She wore it every day after that. But Sophie wasn't just learning. She was teaching. She told the Queen about her mother's life, the struggles, the joys, the small victories. She told her about the hospice where she worked, about the patients who had no family, no visitors, no one to hold their hand when the end came. Mom always said, Sophie explained, that everyone deserves to be seen, to be remembered, no matter who they are. The Queen listened, and something shifted inside her, a realization, a calling. 2 weeks later, the palace announced a new initiative. The Queen would be visiting hospices across the country. She would sit with patients, listen to their stories, hold their hands. It was unprecedented, unconventional, but it was real, and Marcus was assigned to accompany her. The first visit was to the hospice where Sophie worked. The staff was nervous. The patients were overwhelmed, but the Queen moved through the rooms with grace. She sat beside an elderly man who had no family. She held his hand and asked about his life. He told her about his time in the war, his wife, who had passed, his regrets, his gratitude. When it was over, he looked at her with tears in his eyes. Thank you, Your Majesty, for seeing me. The Queen squeezed his hand. Thank you for letting me. Marcus watched from the doorway. He had guarded the Queen for years, but he had never seen her like this. Vulnerable, human, truly present. After the visit, as they walked back to the car, the Queen turned to Marcus. Captain Shaw, I owe you an apology. Marcus blinked. Your Majesty, you could have dismissed that package. You could have sent Sophie away. But you didn't. You listened. You acted. And because of you, I got to say goodbye to my daughter. I will never forget that. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. I was just doing my job, ma'am. The Queen shook her head. No, you did more than that. You gave me a gift. The greatest gift, time, and I will be forever grateful. She extended her hand. Marcus shook it. Not as a guard and a queen, but as to people who understood the weight of loss and the power of love. As the months went on, the visits continued. Sophie often joined. She would introduce her grandmother to patients. share stories, offer comfort. And slowly, the palace became less of a fortress and more of a home. One evening, Marcus found Sophie sitting in the palace gardens. The same bench where he had asked her about the note. She was looking at the fountain, peaceful, content. "You've adjusted well," Marcus said, sitting beside her. Sophie smiled. It's strange. I spent my whole life thinking I was nobody. Just a girl from a small town. But now, I'm a princess, a granddaughter, part of something bigger. Your mother would be proud." "I think so too." Sophie looked at him. "Thank you, Captain, for everything." Marcus nodded. "It was an honor." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sophie reached into her pocket and pulled out the photograph, the one that had started it all. She looked at it. Her mother's young face, the garden, the smile. "I used to think this photograph was just a picture," Sophie said softly. "But it's more than that. It's proof. Proof that love doesn't end. That family finds a way. That even when we're lost, we can be found." Marcus looked at the photograph. He thought about that rainy morning. The unmarked van, the mysterious package, the words written on the side of the box. "From the one you forgot," but Eliza was never forgotten. Not by her adoptive parents. Not by Sophie. And certainly not by the Queen. She was never lost, Marcus said. She was just waiting. For the right moment, the right person, the right message. Sophie smiled. "And you delivered it." Marcus stood. We all did. Together. He walked back toward the palace. The sun was setting. The sky was painted in shades of gold and pink. It was beautiful, peaceful, full of promise. As he reached the entrance, he looked back. Sophie was still sitting on the bench, still holding the photograph, still smiling, and Marcus knew, in that moment, that everything had happened exactly as it was meant to. A mother and daughter had reunited. A grandmother and granddaughter had bonded. A family had healed, and a secret, buried for over 20 years, had finally been set free. The package had been mysterious. The sender's identity had shocked the palace. But in the end, it was love that had delivered the message. Love that had brought them together. Love that had made them whole. And love, Marcus realized, was the greatest delivery of all. As he stepped inside, the palace doors closed behind him. But the story didn't end there. It continued in the quiet moments. In the shared memories. In the silver bracelet Sophie wore. In the visits the Queen made. In the lives they touched, because some stories don't end. They simply become part of who we are. Part of the legacy we leave behind. Part of the love we carry forward. And this story, Marcus thought, was one worth carrying forever.